Yes, we are going live. We are live. Okay, awesome. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Young Leaders Talk Show by Deep Thought. So, here we have Sai, one of the young interns of Deep Thought, who joined Deep Thought on August 23rd. And with the mentorship of our tech mentor, Mr. Hariharan, he's grown as a leader. And Deep Thought has offered him the position of Assistant Vice President Technology, and he'll be able to take charge on February 23rd after completing his 6 months internship with Deep Thought. So let's understand from Mr. Hariharan and Sai as to what this journey was and how Sai was able to develop this learnability and how he was able to go after holistic development, and how did this entire journey even take place. So now I invite Mr. Hariharan to present your thoughts of what was your experience with Sai, and then you can ask him some questions so all of us could know more about his journey through your questions.
First place, Sai, congratulations for being recognized as a young leader, like within Deep Thought. Okay, it's been it's very heartening to see, like, youngsters like you assuming leadership positions. So tell me a little bit about, like, what's been your experience, what's been your journey, like, meaning, like.
Yeah, thank you, Tarun. Thank you, Mr. Hariharan. I would like to start off with the first day of my Deep Thought journey. Like, I was in my observation period, and yeah, I was in a brainstorming session about the SDLMS product. Like, that was a lot. There was a lot of chaos around me. Like, I don't know what's going on in the discussion. And yeah, starting off, I just took my notes. I started posing doubts to my seniors, and I got to know slowly about the product. But yeah, in the long run, I came to know that it's not the efficient way to know about something. And yeah, Deep Thought has allowed me to uh, kind of know about such efficient processes, how to develop, how to get the most of a discussion, how to get the most of uh, anything, like be it an article or a video or anything. So like there are some processes and values which Deep Thought has created in the company for everyone. Yeah, so by initially I started following them, and at a stage, like they became a habit for me. Yeah, that's how I kind of developed these skills.
Sure. So can you talk like some of those, the rigor of the processes, which you learned from Deep Thought, which made a difference in your growth?
Right. So talking about the processes, I would like to, start off with the leadership development initiative, which we have every week in Deep Thought. So when I was participating in that initiative, I came to know about various people's thought processes, and like I would also thank like Sriparna and all, like whoever gave me a very good insights how to spontaneously talk with thinking. And yeah, and coming to the team also, like everyone in the team helps me to start my day with a fresh uh, learning. And yeah, that's somewhat very interesting, which I find in Deep Thought.
Okay. So to be specifically about your technology journey, right? Meaning, so you spoke about like some of this, the opportunities you are getting for overall, like meaning in inclusive growth, not limited to a specific area of the business, right? Which is very good, like but so to talk a little bit specifically about technology, right? What do you think, like meaning your how did you progress, right? Or like now what kind of help you got in the system, and how did it help, or like meaning what is the process, right?
Yeah, talking about learning new technologies or like starting off with new projects or anything, like we have that culture in the team where every day we have that energy in the team. Like we have Shravan and Shubham right now, like they bring a lot of energy into the team, and yeah, they help me to solve many things. They help me in learning different technologies. Yeah, like I hope when I help the same in them. And uh, yeah, Tarun, I think you're on mute.
Sai, could you give us one or two examples around the?
We can't hear.
Am I audible now?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are.
yeah.
Could you give us one or two examples of the new tech that you learned?
Yeah.
Yeah, to start off, like I started as a front end intern in Deep Thought. Like in the first week itself, I started learning open source ERP called as Odo. Like we thought of building our product using Odo, which is a ERP built using Python and all. Like we didn't do it in a conventional way, like we always watch YouTube videos or something. But yeah, we started going into the community, taking in community experts, asking them questions, and we kind of started learning like that. It's a kind of a different way to learn a technology, but yeah, it's very effective if you ask me. Yeah.
Sai,
So can you see a couple of examples? What are the technologies you have learned in the last
Uh,
4 or 5 months?
yeah, so I started as a front end dev, as I told, like I learned backend technologies, Node.js, and yeah, we also had this NodeBB platform, uh, which is a forum software. I understood the architecture. I understood how to use jQuery. There are like many other things. Like we also came to know about Kafka, Apache Kafka, and yeah, and even even we made many deployments in cloud, which I was not aware of before, like using DigitalOcean engine, XPM2, and all.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this I was able to easily go get into this tech by the kind of environment which we set up in the team. Like we have a very energetic environment, like we all are youngsters, and yeah, Shavan and Shubham, like we also have our mentors who always help us. So all these things which the team brings into the plate made me achieve more, like in a very less span of time, I can say.
Like, see, learning technologies like Node.js or jQuery, JavaScript in span of 5 months is an enormous achievement in any scale, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think the key ingredients which made a difference? You may not have enough experience to talk about, at least from your experience. What are the 2, 3 key things which made a big difference for you to be able to deliver what you are able to deliver today?
Like, yeah, I was asking the same question in a different way to one of my tech mentors. Like, how would I learn this technology in an easier way? Like he answered, you learn more when you are in the application process, like when you do the application, not by some courses or something. So that's the thing which I've been doing. But yeah, I didn't kind of realize that that's the exact way how we should pursue things. So yeah, when I was working on Node.js, I just went through the documentation and I started working on the project directly. So we always have a backup, so we kind of feel safe. So if there is someone to back you up and allow you to do things, there's this freedom factor which allows you to innovate things in the workplace, and yeah, go and find whatever it is there in the platform, be it Node.js or anything.
Okay, so you're saying like primarily like the safety net you had made you very comfortable to go go and experiment with things and learn things.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's one of the point. And yeah, application, learning through application of the technology.
You just
Okay.
could you just pick something difficult which you were trying to solve, right? While doing the project, can you pick something which was very challenging and how you learned it? Any one small example?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say the same about like fixing, installing like Apache Kafka into my system. Like we kind of did it in a very different way, which nobody will ever do it, I think. But yeah, we find those hacks. Those hacks really help us, like installing Apache Kafka using a VM where you install a one more Linux distro in it. That's kind of a innovation which we made, and like we found it very difficult initially. Like there were many errors regarding Java and all, uh, popping out when we try to install in my local system. So what we did is like we used a VM and we tried to like install another distro called as Kali Linux, which has a Java platform already installed in it. That helped us to cut off the installation time of Java, and directly we integrated the Apache Kafka in it. So yeah, there are some hacks which we follow, which we kind of come to know during the process of innovating. That hacks really help to break down difficult tasks.
Any JavaScript or Node.js difficulties which you had while working on the SDLMS? While working on the project, any difficulties you had with JavaScript or SDLMS, which you were able to fix, and how were you able to fix them?
Yeah, recently while we are working on the SDLMS, we were using jQuery and JavaScript a lot. Like in the NodeBB architecture, like everything is the architecture is somewhat very much woven kind of. So yeah, we started to break down the architecture to the basic root level and started to learn things from the root. Like
you give us a concrete example so we understand what you're saying.
It's
very generic, right? So
you may want to talk about the carousel thing, right? You had difficulty with how to do in
yes.
That's
so
one
yeah,
example. Or there are things on the on the jQuery side, right? Plugins, we built many of them.
Right. Yeah. While building the jQuery plugins for the thread builder, basically, which one of our tech mentor helped, and the code was like kind of very complex to me. Like initially, I didn't understand the code, but when I broke it down into pieces and I went from one part of it to other part, I kind of got the connection in between it. So yeah, that's one thing which I learned from Mr. Hariharan also, like breaking down things into components and working on each of them to get more of them. So when we like work on the components individually, we also have that when we solve one of the component, we also get that confidence and energy to work on the next one. So that would save us time, the confidence which we get. That's
okay. So in terms of overall meaning outside of technology, like I have seen you in being part of the deep thought leadership meetings, right? What is the kind of experience and exposure you're getting, and how is that helping you to do your day-to-day activities, right? How is that helping and to do things better? Is it helping? And how is it helping?
Yeah, obviously the leadership meet the ideas which different mentors of deep thought bring in. Obviously they help me. Like there's a wide range of perspectives like which everyone brings into the plate, like that industry leaders, like the thought leaders of the each industry bring in. So there is a blend of all the ideas, and yeah, we can use them any way we want in the tech. Like we blend in those ideas and bring the closure in a form of tech. Yeah.
Can you give us a couple of examples?
Right. Like when we spoke about the, like not getting the exact term, but yeah, when there are many things like Yugandhar sir will tell us like what is the how would you measure the, how would you measure the effectiveness of a problem or something, like effectiveness of the work. So you always calculate your end results and did they meet your expectations or not. That's like a hack which you develop for calculating your tasks every day. That's kind of thing which I learned from Mr. Yugandhar sir.
Yeah. So is there meaning? Is there any specific personalities, right, within the organization or even outside of this organization who have influenced in your growth path?
Yeah, like everyone in Deep Thought gives me an inspiration. Like if we talk about Tarun, like he's a very great inspiration for me, like in every aspect, like whatever he talks, like the energy he has, like the dedication when it comes to completing anything, everything, like even from Tarun, like even from you managing the task so easily, that's one thing which I like which I take as an inspiration. And coming to the team, as I told already, like they bring a fresh ideology to the team, so every day we have that energy building up. Coming to the different teams, yeah, everybody, like when I talk to Anirban, I get this thing to put out new ideas. And yeah, so from everybody I learned something which is very important and which made me what I am now. Yeah.
Okay. Any specific examples to quote, particularly from your core team members, which you have picked up, or even if you wish you would pick up?
Like, yeah, sure. I'd like to pick up be Shavan, or yeah, even Shubham. Like as we know, like Shubham is in an early age and he brings a lot of dedication to the work. Like he's so much interested into the things whichever we give him. Like not only the technical aspect, but also he's also interested in other stuff which we do it in the which we do in Deep Thought. Like that kind of dedication which he brings up. And yeah, he also tries to solve problems very in a different way, not by just going and searching on the internet or doing like that, but he troubleshoots it in a different way. That's something which I learned from Shubham. And yeah, even Shavan has the same kind of mentality as well.
So
Give us examples of things, the other things that deep thought what you meant by that.
Other things as in like other than our team, you mean?
Just now while answering, you had used the phrase Shavan shows interest in other things also at deep thought. So can you elaborate what you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah, actually I said Shubham shows other things, but yeah, interest in other things. Like as I spoke to him like yesterday or day before yesterday, I don't remember it, but yeah, he was kind of he wants to develop himself personally. So he was asking me like, what can I do, or how is it possible? Like I told like some of the processes which we follow in Deep Thought. Like he was so into it that
So those processes in deep thought, can you give some examples?
yeah, so I've described him about the Socratic dialogue, about the brainstorming sessions we frequently have about the product. And yeah, when the leadership development initiative, I also briefed him about that. And yeah, when told this all, he was like, today, I think when I told him there's a discussion going on, he just hopped in, and it, he kind of brings that very quickly to his mind that he has to do something to develop himself. And yeah, that's what inspires me a lot from him.
Okay, Mr. Hariharan, I have some questions for you.
sure.
So what was your reaction when you first heard of this AVP initiative of deep thought?
But to be honest, like no, it is something I wanted to do personally, like no, in my professional career. Like meaning in 30 years, I wish I have done a number of times before this, but I'm really glad that I could do it now for the first time in my life. This is to me a dream. Okay, like meaning I have in my past life with various organizations, I've been very particular in the last 10 years, to be specific, in bringing in fresh minds and fresh air into the team by getting like generally like college, meaning like people who have come out of college, right, in bringing them and mentoring them. I should say I have been quite successful, and I see like the guys whom I have like mentored, they are all in a, meaning most of them are all had grown in the professional career, and they are doing like doing very well, right? But still they are, I know like what they are capable of, right? But still like the kind of organizational position they hold, right, it is still like meaning uh, it doesn't do justice for what they are capable. Okay, I think like I am a strong believer that, meaning the youngsters, are the right kind of person to lead the organization from the front. And I'm really glad that, meaning we have Sai recognized today. And I wish like many more Sais come out of this deep thoughts organization, like now, which I'm looking at a little bit more. I'm not looking at in a deep thought perspective, right? Because this is what I see as like something I am giving back to the society. Okay, helping people, like helping youngsters, like to grow in their careers and shine, and be be socially responsible, right? I think like now I'm truly speaking, I'm elated, right? It's a dream come true.
But I have a follow-up question to that. So when you said that some of the youngsters are not able to do justice to their talent, I mean, they could play bigger roles in organizations. So
Right.
what is that gap which you've seen, which if filled, they can go into leadership roles?
I think this is, I would say it is, nothing but, our systems, right? Like, the systems we have put in our typical organizational thing, right? That, meaning people are evaluated, like, there is still in India, to a larger extent, you give weightage to the years of experience. Okay. It still plays, meaning until you reach like maybe 10, 12 years of experience, right? That component has a higher weightage for your growth path. Okay, it's very like unusual in India to be like thinking like meaning a younger person, irrespective of their capability and ability, like moving up in the organization, which is not, and particularly when you have like levels in the organization where like people with higher experience are already there in the organizational positions. To me, like that has been a meaning wherever I have been trying to like push them through the system, that's been the challenge. Though like to an extent I was successful in other organizations also to be able to like progress them to a point, but after a point it, you kind of start hitting a ceiling. Okay.
But if there's an organization which is willing to consider younger talent, what are the gaps you see in the people themselves which prevents them from going to leadership positions?
It is largely like the thought process. The thing is, meaning, see, there are 2-3 elements which makes the biggest difference, right? One is basically an open culture, right, which helps like where you kind of involve your key people. When I say key people who can potentially contribute, not because of they have a position, people who can contribute, right? I don't mind like I really like meaning this story I probably many of you would have gone through, I think in Zoho or Freshdesk, I am not sure, where the guy who's the watchman in the office has been made as a software engineer. I don't recall Zoho or Freshdesk. It's an inspiring story, right? Okay, it doesn't matter who, like what is this person is about. Can he contribute? Can he be like meaning valuable to the organization? If he's valuable, meaning that openness should be there in the organization, not looking at the ranks. Okay, right? Not with senior. I'm not even talking about seniority, but just not ranks. Okay, people who meaning that openness. And also as a culture, people, organizations, willingness to innovate beyond a point. Okay, everyone is kind of sets little bit thing of like, here is my competition. I want to scale there, not that, I want to look at a larger problem which I am trying to solve. Okay, oftentimes you try to scale to the competition or try to follow the competition, not going beyond and looking the larger problem you are trying to solve. Okay. I see these are the two important things which kind of pulls them down, right? Not able to like kind of utilize the energy available in the organization.
Okay, I have a focus question here. So now there are a lot of internship aspirants of Deep Thought who are also listening to us live right now. So in case there are some young, techies who aspire to get to that AVP Tech position. So as a tech mentor of Deep Thought, on what parameters would you be evaluating them to see if they're ready to take the leadership responsibility or not? What is your advice to them?
I would say, like, no, the most important thing to do is, like, no, practice is the one which takes you forward. Okay, so practice whatever is the technology you are trying to work on. It doesn't matter Node.js, Node.bb, Java, C#. Just it completely makes no sense. Just practice whatever you are doing. Get into the depths. Understand these technologies to the core. Okay, so typically when you are talking tech, you better understand these things from a technology standpoint, right? How does, like, meaning, okay, Apache Kafka is there, like, now how does it work, right? One is like, now how do I use it, and second is more about how does it work, right? What is the fundamental concepts on which it is, like, it is trying to take advantage of and working on, right? And so what are those, like, these little the tuning things, right, which you need to understand. The underlying concepts you should, like, you should get more conversant with it. It's not that you may not have to, like, get thorough on it, but you get conversant with it, which gives you, like, leverage. Okay, I think practice is the one important thing. Okay, two is try to stay focused on what is happening around you. Okay, so which is basically, like, whichever technology you are using, try to follow the technology, what is happening new, right? And what are the new innovations coming, right? And three is learn from leaders. Okay, when I say leaders, it's not, doesn't have to be like, you need to have a mentor or whatever, right? There is medium.com, there is Stack Overflow, right? There are hundreds of such tools that are available today, right? Make a point to learn something from it and contribute to it also, not just, like, be a one-way thing of, like, just utilizing the information available. You also contribute. Okay, that is something, like, I would strongly suggest anyone who is trying to become a look at for a tech leadership roles. That is something very important. That's the basics. Okay.
Okay. Now, what are the qualities you've seen in Sai which gave you the confidence that he can take up leadership responsibilities at Deep Thought?
Sure. See, what I liked about Sai is, the first thing is, like, his ability to understand the problem. He doesn't get overly excited or frustrated, right? Like, meaning there is no overexcitement when something is done. There is no frustration when something is not done, right? So he stays, like, kind of quite calm, and make sure understand the problem, and try to look to solve the problem in hand. Okay, so his focus has been always towards solving the problem in hand, which is very fundamental for technology, like, meaning to be able to, like, progress. Okay, that is one. And two is his ability to quickly grasp some of the inputs given to him. Okay, so, like, if I can show him, like, some examples of this similar problem solved, right? His ability to grasp from them, like, okay, what is that, he can draw similarities, what is that he can draw out of that thing, and be able to apply to the problem in hand and being able to solve them. Okay, so ability to, like, meaning, so draw parallels and be able to do that. And of course, very importantly, like, when it comes to technology, like, whatever I mean, he has been solving problems himself, like, he has been also learning from others, like, in the team who are solving different problems. He is also learning from them, making sure that he's just adding to his to his capability, that meaning he started as a backend developer, but meaning essentially he does both back end and front end for us. He has become a full stack developer today, just because of the fact that he picked up all the front end skills from the team. He picked it up, he got interested in learning them, and he worked with them to understand it and be able to solve those problems and take up those additional meaning whenever opportunity. Yes.
Ask a quick question to Sai.
Mhm.
Sai, I think when you joined us on August 23rd, you joined as a React JS developer.
Yeah.
Right. And then I think somewhere in October, Hariharan tells that Sai is the best Node.js developer in the team best backend developer in the team right now. Then I tell him he joined as a React developer. He's like, okay, that's okay, but then he's the best backend developer in the team right now, and I think he should be doing backend. So then I think you were put into pure backend for 1 month. Then suddenly you're told that, okay, there's no need of React.js because NodeBB works on JavaScript. And now you're working on JavaScript, jQuery, and Node.js.
Right. Yeah.
You came into the organization to work on React.js. So what was the experience around this?
Yeah, so when you have that openness to learn anything new, it kind of comes to you naturally. It kind of help you get from your colleagues is also one key factor, and when it comes to learning different technologies, yeah, as I said already, you apply it, you kind of know from the application rather than.
Let me just push you a bit here because we're getting a little generic answer. So talking of openness, there are a lot of people who are open. Talking of support from colleagues in a lot of companies, you get the support. So why do you think people are not able to pick up the complete tech stack quickly?
Taking all these things might seem easier, but bringing them all together and applying it might, you might find it difficult to do it. That's what I initially faced while I was doing my first project in Deep Thought. That was the landing page, which kind of failed. But you don't overly do tasks so that you overburn them. So you just take things one at a time, concentrate on the process. The results will come. But yeah, the process is what I always find which is important. So the process which you follow to learn new stuff is also one of the indicator which how you learn.
And a couple of questions before again we circle back to Hariharan around his observations about you. Question number one is Hariharan was mentioning the other day that when you're given some task from the Deep Thought marketing team, that the website has to be configured, or we want something from a marketing standpoint and so on. You don't go to Hariharan and tell him that Tarun gave me this task, so I need some more time to finish your work. But you make sure that you do both of them on time. Just to quote Mr. Hariharan directly, he said, Sai doesn't have a grudge when some work is given to him. He's happy to pick up the work. And with his experience, he was just saying a lot of people have a grudge when you give them extra work to do. So why does this happen to you that even if extra work is given, you're able to complete it and you're able to, manage everything as per timelines?
I won't take the entire credit for this, but yeah, even Shawan was the one who was helping me. So every time, that delegation is one of the factor, which made me complete both the things faster. And when I get a new work or something, I don't feel like it's an extra burden, but I try to learn more out of it. That's one thing. And managing the time is always you always have some buffer time for tasks that I use to do other stuff. In the same time, I complete the extra work which is given. I don't feel it as extra work because I learn more. Even if it is a repetitive task, I try to innovate it. So yeah, it's kind of a fun activity for me to do extra work.
How you innovated a repetitive task?
I can give an example, but actually it failed. But it's a very good example. We kind of, when we were given 7 or 8 subdomains to be created, we tried initially. What me and Shawan did was we only used one code base and we deployed each with that only one Git repo, which worked for some time. But again, yeah, that's not the exact way how we do it, which worked, but it's not the effective way. That will soon change it. It's not changed yet. We should soon consider a new way of innovating how to do that
Did the
repetitive task.
CI/CD, right? You did
Yeah,
the
yeah, the CI.
CI/CD for the multiple websites, isn't it?
Yeah, we did the CI/CD, but it's not done entirely. Like we should also take some inputs from other tech mentors and complete it.
Okay, sure.
And one more question before going back to Mr. Hariharan is, what was your experience while managing the recruitment process of new interns? So what were the learnings while getting into this recruitment process?
One of yeah, I really enjoyed this recruitment process. Like the past 2 3 days also, like I was able to talk to new people from very different states of different parts of the country. Like they some of them like they kind of bring a lot of uh, positivity to talk to, and yeah, some might not bring the same, but we always while like orienting them, I got to know like many things, like okay, this is to be done like this. When you describe your company to someone, you do it in this way. Like there are so many learnings from them, from that as well, while orienting the recruiters, sorry, interns. And when I was like kind of doing the recruitment of AVP also, I found many people, many seniors also, like they kind of bring a wrong mentality when it comes to taking the roles. They bring so much conventional factor, like this is to be done this way. They send the resumes and all. That's not what we do in Deep Thought. But yeah, I came to know about this stuff. Like this is how the world works, but that's not the correct way.
Okay, why do you think it's not the correct way?
Like I learned it from you only, but yeah, that's a simple example. Like 2 papers of a resume won't describe what you can do and what you're worth of. That's a simple example. Like whenever I started hiring the senior AVPs, they whenever I gave them this response, they started sharing their resumes with me, which I that's not the correct way. Which I think resumes won't uh, help knowing about the people. Even I stopped posting resumes anywhere.
Okay, so now going back to Mr. Hariharan, so what do you think of these deep thought approaches? Like when we needed a freelancer to take up some important projects, we asked the interns to go talk to them, ask them all the doubts they have, and then we would go and the senior members of the team would go and engage with them for further discussion once the interns are satisfied with their doubts, or when the AVP Tech recruitment was going on, we asked the interns to put the job post on LinkedIn and have a dialogue with them and see how different people in the market behave. So how do you think all of this adds up to the growth of a young techie?
No, it is a very, to me, like it's a feeling and emotion which is extremely important for youngsters. Okay, I have done a little bit of this experiments in the past with my earlier lives too. Like when I have to hire a manager, the way, like, of course, job post and everything happens. Post the initial HR, typically what I will have is the potential people who are going to report to that person, or the one will talk to the candidate first. Okay, so and they won't do as an individual. Rather, they may kind of 3 4 of them will go talk to them in groups. So see, essentially, like, we don't meaning I won't spend time talking to them first. I will get this vibes from the team, because at the end of the day, what I feel is they have to work with this team, and if they hit the right vibes, that is the biggest positive for a candidate, right? So that is what I have tried this thing, and it has been, I should say there is a mixed response. Okay, but I see there is a lot of value in it. What we are doing in deep thought little differently is it is more systematized versus being like meaning tried. right? It is a little bit more systematized. Like when people are, I mean, the interns are even trained on how should they be doing these things, right? I mean, it is expected out of them. It is not like something out of the blue, like one day you ask them to do, right? It is not. So it's there. It is been set up as one of the responsibilities to essentially to be able to interview any newcomer to deep thought, whether they will be their bosses, they will be their colleagues, irrespective, right? I think that is, to me, it's a very important factor. Meaning, if I know also for the person who is being interviewed, okay, that tells a lot about the culture, okay, and how much they pay attention to it is a one can question it, but it is actually tells a lot about the culture. A person who is interested in the organization will kind of get these vibes right. Okay, this is this company puts value on their people. They are it's not meaning the CEO or the top person is trying to interview and hire me. It's I have to really to prove myself to be a good colleague, good manager, whatever it is that role is going to be, right? It kind of puts them in a much more responsible state even before they are hired, right? Meaning people who didn't like this thing, they're being asked, juniors asking questions. If they don't like it, I doubt they will continue in the process. So it, in a sense, it kind of, you are ferreting out people who may not fit the culture. It doesn't mean that they are good or bad. I'm not talking about their capability. It's just that meaning mindset and culture fitment problems. You are ferreting it out. You are talking to really a core set of people who are who will fit into the organization. And for the interns, I think meaning many of this people who are sitting and listening also now, they are also able to get right with every discussion happening, whether it is interview or whether it is a leadership meet or a meeting of this sort. I think they have been groomed in a way that to listen and take basically follow what they are gathering from these meetings. It's not that just take a note and write a article, right? But it is more like internalizing and being able to follow, right? I think talking to senior members elsewhere in the interview process, right, which will add a lot more for them also in terms of enriching their knowledge. May not be limited to the domain they are talking to. It can be in a larger sense in terms of leadership and empathy and and other aspects, right? And there is a lot more to learn and grow professionally and personally as well.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hariharan. Now we'll move into a more of a Socratic format where we would not want the answer to be longer than 20 seconds. So to bring the Socratic spirit, we have Satya and Aryan here.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Satya, Aryan.
Hi.
So Satya, Aryan, the house is over to you guys for questions. Yeah. Who wants to go in first with the question?
Why do you think that the people who are seeing the video, the interns, are able to internalize and follow what we are discussing right now?
There is a little bit of noise, Aryan,
So
in
I'll repeat
background.
the question. He's like, why do you think these interns and youngsters at Deep Thought are able to not just listen or write articles, but also internalize the concepts of the meeting, as you just stated?
Yeah, I strongly believe that is the process or the rigor we follow. We have been fundamentally inculcating in all DTMs, which is basically meta thinking, right? We are not talking meaning what you learn, but meta thinking. So it essentially means take the summary and put into work, right? That's to me that comes from the culture.
Okay, I'll stop you here and circle back to them for a question. Yes.
Would that be considered executing what you learned?
Can you
Can
repeat
be
it? Sorry.
considered executing what you learn.
Yes, executing and practicing. Yes.
Okay.
More like
Yeah.
learn how to execute it also. Yeah. Continue.
Okay. I have two questions.
Yeah.
How do you learn to execute? And also, does executing lead to more learning and more practice?
Okay. So executing essentially it's pretty straightforward, right? Meaning in terms of in a simple sense, right? Okay. You learned today to play cricket. Okay. You learn to play how to bat. Okay. So you keep batting. That's it. You keep batting. So what are you doing? You are improving every day. You just keep doing what you are doing, right? In the process, also figured out how to field. In the process, you also figured out how to bowl or how not to bowl, right? All these things, as you practice, it just keeps happening. You live in the ecosystem, right? You can't be alone, right? You're not doing things alone for yourself. So whatever happening around, you keep learning, right? Yeah, keep adding more.
Again,
You started with one.
I'll stop you here and circle back for a counter question. Yeah. Any questions based on what Mr. Hariharan just answered?
So it's like when you're learning something, you learn something new and connect both of them.
Correct.
Okay.
Learning from relationship is something in my mind a very important thing. Like you learn one thing and you learn the next thing by learning from what you have learned already, right? That connecting them makes it easier to cognize and remember and practice.
Okay.
I didn't understand what you meant by cognize.
Cognize essentially meaning that's okay. I meant it by saying internalize, right? You make it as a practice, right? Okay. So you do like brush your teeth in the morning, right? It is internalized. Nobody have to tell you. Sometimes it's also referred colloquially like muscle memory, right? You just don't, nobody have to tell you, right? You just react that way.
Okay. Satya, Aryan, any questions for Sai?
Yes. So he was speaking about learning to execute it. So in your journey in deep thought, how did you learn to execute the things that you learned?
So it's been a
Like,
learning every day.
The
yeah.
question is for Sai.
Sorry.
Like
Sorry.
I can give you an example where I always find Sri Parna to give this. She has that spontaneity of putting out anything. Like she spontaneously thinks and speaks the same way. So yeah, I learned it from her to how we can inculcate this feat, like this thing from her during the LDI, which I stated before. Yeah.
Satya, counter question.
How important do you think spontaneity is to execution and learning?
I'm execution and learning. Like I didn't connect those two things, but yeah, I just gave an example like how you learn to execute.
Okay.
No, I didn't get this. What did you learn from Sriparna?
Like how do you speak spontaneously while thinking?
But his question was about execution, right?
Yeah, he asked like how do you learn to execute?
Yeah, how is that spontaneity linked to this?
I learned by seeing her to how to execute the spontaneity thing.
So
That's like
you chose to respond spontaneously, having learned from her,
yeah.
right? Okay.
Is it only this, or do you use a process to learn to execute things?
Process like I don't exactly use a process, but I try to learn from people very often. So yeah, that's I don't know like if it is a process or not. I'm not even sure. Yeah.
Like regarding the thing you told about delegation before, that when you get the marketing work, so you delegate it to somebody
Yeah.
else. But you then also told about learning more from the opportunity. So when do you feel that I should delegate it and just don't do learning from that? Leave that
Uh,
opportunity.
yeah, delegating in the sense like coming to that marketing thing. I delegated it like some part of the work. Like it's kind of a repetitive work. So I delegated some part of the work to Shavan and some part of it to me. So that yeah, here I didn't lose the opportunity to learn from the execution. Yeah.
Are there any big roadblocks you faced while trying to do your work and achieve this position?
Uh, to achieve this position or like to achieve any task or something like that.
Like, is there any example where you faced any huge roadblocks and how did you solve them?
I think like I won't call them as roadblocks, but yeah, I'll call them as learnings. When I see someone like doing better than me, I always learn from them, and like those are not kind of roadblocks. How can I put it? Yeah. If you consider like someone performing better than me, like there are times when I miss the chance to work on things which I wanted to.
Like when you're doing software development,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there are roadblocks at times, right? Not everything is a straightforward code. So would you be able to tell us some small part where you're
Challenges.
stuck? Yeah.
Yes, like I have already told about when I was doing the thread builder plugin part. There was a very lengthy code which I couldn't understand initially. So I used this technique to break it down into components and understand it piece by piece. So that helped. Like that's one of the process which I almost follow every place.
So you use first principles reasoning.
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay.
Okay.
How do you think using this process affects what you're doing? And is there any big thing that you could overcome because of this?
Like this, by doing this breakdown, it saves you a lot of time. Like it when I told this again, like when you do it piece by piece, you get that when you solve the first one, you get that confidence and energy that you can you carry forward, you take it forward to the next part. So that kind of helps you to break it down more easier. So yeah, that's an advantage of doing this.
Okay. So Satya and Aryan, now I'd like to use the last few minutes to field some questions to Mr. Hariharan. So we're asking this question: how can we nurture youngsters into leaders for the society and the economy, right? So now when we talk of leadership, especially when you talk of an AVP role, or so you're talking of strategy level work, and you're talking of the AVP also has a role to play in terms of fielding the team, maintaining the culture in the team, and a lot of important responsibilities. I'm sure you guys have seen that when you participated in the young CMO, young CTO, young CXO, and all the Socratic dialogues. So do you have some questions to ask Mr. Hariharan? So, I mean, just thinking out loud that in case you guys want to kickstart your careers as CXOs right after grade 12, what should you be doing? So do you have some questions to ask him so you can pick up some pointers and use the next 6 years of your life to work on that? Because he's still in grade 6, right? So any questions for him to get there?
Do you think there are any important processes or any important things that we have to learn to become leaders?
I already kind of mentioned, right? Practice, right?
Yes.
Practice makes the man perfect. So keep practicing whatever, like, whatever your aspirations, right? practice. As you practice, your idea, your thought of that subject keeps expanding. Okay, and then keep exploring, everything expanding, right? Today you know this much, tomorrow you know this much, right? Then every area you explore, then you just keep expanding. Okay, so just keep doing it. And I would strongly suggest that, I think like some of this deep thought methodologies of journaling, right? This journaling and then writing this daily. What is the other one term? Like now, I keep forgetting the name. That daily,
TOC sheets,
reflections, right? The journals and reflections are, I think they are great tools, right? I would strongly recommend you to practice it. Use it in your day-to-day life. Use it. I'm sure it will change you. Okay, you may not realize, you may not be able to even understand it if I speak now. Like, it might take 10 years for you to understand what I'm saying. Okay, or even more to understand. But practice is there is nothing better than those kind of tools, right? It doesn't matter what you want to do, learn whatever you want to learn, but get into this habit of like reflecting and journaling, and keep improving, right, from there.
Another question about learning. So I want to become an entrepreneur. So are there any important things that I want to learn from a technology standpoint, like coding or using any particular apps or anything?
See, you want to become an entrepreneur or you want to become a techie? You have to see. Thing is, you can be an entrepreneur and a techie as well. Okay.
That's what I want to be.
What is your? You need to be like a little bit more clearer on what is your aspiration. You want to be a techie. You want to be both, right? For an entrepreneur, you need to be able to identify a problem you want to solve. Okay. Which may be like, meaning which is generally out there as a problem, or create a problem. Okay. You might have heard this whole story of like, meaning this, you may or may not even know about such an instrument existed called Walkman, right? Sony Walkman, probably no one would have heard about it, right? That is something like, meaning came out of an innovation. There was no need, nobody thought about like, such an instrument will be of use to people, right? It was a created need, right? So either there is a problem out there or you create a need, right? So you need, for an entrepreneur, you need to be thinking those things, right? What is that need? Like you guys may think like, in metaverse world, there may be like certain needs. You can create it, right? So like I saw like, I'm just giving some interesting quoting, like, apparently a couple in Chennai choose to do their wedding reception in metaverse. They are going to do that like probably tomorrow or day after. Okay. So now creating a niche, creating a need like that, right? Is metaverse is a need. It is not like a problem, right? It's a need, right? So as an entrepreneur, you need to start thinking those kind of things, right? Creating needs or looking around problems.
Satya's question is from a tech standpoint, what does he have to start working?
Right. No, for entrepreneur, that is very important. Okay. For a techie, right, there might exist a need or there exists a problem, right? You are not trying to like, you are looking how to solve it. Okay. For a techie, it is a little bit more on how to do it. How do I solve that problem? For entrepreneur, it is like, creating a need or identifying a problem and what is the value of solving that problem, or what is when it comes to you're identifying a need, what is that you gain out of it, right? Meaning there is some satisfaction you gain out, like a video game, not a need, it's a need, right? It's not a problem, right? What is that you gain out of it? Like you gain some satisfaction, right? Okay. So for an entrepreneur, you need to be thinking those. What is that like? Meaning, if you identify a need, what is the mental satisfaction or what are the emotion factors which the one would get, right? You need, that's where you are thinking. Okay. It's a very, though it is kind of one comes after the other, but for a techie, how do I do it? Right? What is that I can use to solve the problem? Okay. Oftentimes, yes, people are like entrepreneur and techies, right? Techies become entrepreneurs because they are seeing both of the thing together. Okay, they see a problem and see they have an idea on how to solve the problem. Okay, to be an entrepreneur, you don't have to know how to solve it. You can always find people to solve for it. Okay, but techie is a person who is solving the problem. Okay, so when it comes to technology, so if you want to see technology, the thing I would suggest is technology is varied. Okay, today, like I am not talking only about the computer science and things related to it. There is so much in terms of technology exists today. Okay, when you guys grow 10 years later, probably meaning I was just kidding with my daughters. This is what I use, meaning sorry to use little meaning connotation which probably you guys may not find it interesting. I was telling my daughter that meaning when you all going to get married, meaning the demand will be can you give 5 bitcoins as dowry? Right? Or can we have a SpaceX travel as a honeymoon trip? So this world is changing that way. I'm trying to say where it would be meaning 10 years from now, right? Okay, so you want to think little ahead, not like what is today. Okay, so think this metaverse and all those things, meaning distributed bitcoins and those kind of technology, NFT and such technologies, is that you have to start understanding. You may not have to start coding. You need to start understanding what is it used for, how does it help, what is the underlying things behind it, right? How that economy works. Okay, the understanding coding and doing coding you can actually gather it much quicker if you understood the underlying things. Okay, today meaning one of the challenges, we have good engineers, but they are not good professionals. When I say that, they can solve a problem, but they don't know where to start, right? Somebody has to give them a roadmap. Somebody has to give you a complete steps on what they should do. Then they can follow it, right? They can solve a smaller problem, but not a bigger chunk, right? Which they cannot kind of architect it, right? So you need to understanding these technologies from the core helps you a lot. Okay, so when you guys are growing, I don't think we are talking about meaning the SDLMSs may exist, but SDLMSs may exist in a completely different context, right? It may be you all will be meaning typically touching and learning and right? That is what kind of the experience probably will have, right? Not by someone talking, right? You can experience it yourself.
Yeah.
So before we conclude, so I was hoping to do something interesting from Aryan, Satya, and Ananya. So Ananya, I mean, when we speak of youngsters in strategy and leadership positions, so yeah, Sai has been promoted to this position, but there are a lot of other people who are front runners for the AVP program of Deep Thought, at least 3 to 4 more youngsters who just out there. And Deep Thought has possibly not announced their name, not because people are not ready, but because Deep Thought wants to first crack that marketing milestone and then announce the names. But otherwise, there were probably 3 to 4 people whose names should have been out much earlier. So what is your, given that a lot of youngsters are watching the stream, so what is your take on the experience with Deep Thought so far and what youngsters can possibly do at the workplace in terms of rapid growth?
Right. So my experience, I think when I came to Deep Thought, the way I entered and where I am right now is very, very different. I came into Deep Thought with probably that, okay, this is a concept that something that piqued my interest. I went into the academics department. I learned so much. And then slowly, I didn't even realize, but suddenly I was in multiple departments, and all departments, the work I was doing was kind of in such a collaborative matter that one work I did here is helping the other department. So it doesn't seem that, I'm everywhere, but at the same time, I'm everywhere. I don't know whether that will make sense, but the culture at Deep Thought is so that there are connections between all functions. The management, the systems are very lean. So what you learn here, you will end up using there and vice versa. So one thing that I would like to share with all the youngsters out there is that whenever you're in a setting where you're working with multiple individuals, there is a good chance that you might feel that, okay, you don't have the knowledge, or maybe you don't have that experience that is required for such a role. But I personally know a lot of young interns who came into the program with no experience. They came straight out of a college. Some of them are still in college, and they are doing exceptionally well. They are doing the work that probably an AVP does. So to sum up, what I'm trying to say is that experience is not something that is mandatory, that you need to have that experience. Now, if we look at Sai also, I mean, the discussion, if you have observed the insights that Sai has, it's all come through working and not all through prior experience. So that constant extrapolation of ideas, that constant small experiments is something that will help you build as a leader and reach where Sai is and where we all want to be.
Okay. So Satya and Aryan, I think while you were doing your internship at Deep Thought, so you were probably interacting with Praveena, Ananya, and a few other people internally. I think you were going around breakout rooms and listening to people. So what were you seeing in the teams, and what were your observations?
So when I went around all of the teams, one thing I noticed was sometimes it was really chaotic and work wasn't assigned properly, but once leaders were there and they were discussing everything got settled down. People were doing their work, they were discussing everything, and everything was in a very structured manner. So if anybody saw it, they could adapt to it and flow with the team easily.
And my experience was that I was seeing all of the discussions there. I feel that it was like thought leader discussions. There were a lot of activities and fun also. But there was a lot of value being generated out of it. And yes, it was too chaotic.
So why do you say there was a lot of value being generated?
Because in the discussions, like now we have insight spotting and also thread builders. So you note it and also try to think it upon it deeply. So that created the value.
Okay. So before we close, I would like to get final remarks of Mr. Hariharan. But before that, I just wanted to add a perspective for all the people who just joined in. With my experience of working with a lot of youngsters for the last 10 years, I think there's a lot more which youngsters are capable of doing. And we've heard a lot of the ideas today. Some of them may not make immediate sense because until you're put in that situation, you may not be able to relate to them directly. But one problem is that the mainstream society is designed for something else, which Mr. Hariharan was explaining right at the beginning. The mainstream workplace is designed to look at experience and promote people only after several years of working with an organization. So if you attune your mind to the mainstream thinking, there's no way you will grow quickly, because that mainstream thinking is designed for something else. It's designed for slow growth. So step one is to say that, hey, just because my peers are doing something doesn't mean I have to do the same thing. If you're following the crowd, it's guaranteed that you'll not grow quickly, right? If you're not following the crowd, are you guaranteed to grow? I don't know. But if you're following the crowd, it's guaranteed that you will not grow quickly, right? So, and the point is, I think what Sai was trying to articulate and probably was, searching for examples and couldn't get them in few places, is I think it's very important to look at things in a very holistic perspective. So as both Ananya and Sai were presenting with their experiences, that at times it's very tempting to say that this is my work, let me focus on this work, because if I do this work, I'll get my things done and I'll grow. Some of the things may not even appear relevant when, we're going after them. But what these things do is they actually add to that worldview. That is, when you're going and seeing everything, I mean, typically in a large corporate, you're writing a code, you have no clue of how your work is influencing the overall code. That's something we hear. I mean, that's nothing new. But basis what Sai is narrating, he was able to go and see some classrooms. He was able to see how teachers teach in classrooms. He was able to see the product research, gets a holistic perspective of how things happen, and is able to execute. And quoting what Mr. Hariharan said, to learn JavaScript, jQuery, Node.js, all of them in a matter of 4 months is a phenomenal achievement. Mr. Hariharan, I wanted to go in here because, as a moderator, when I think about it, if I'm a college student, I'm listening to this entire discussion, I'm still a little confused over, okay, what did he actually do? Because whatever is being discussed seems pretty simple and basic. So if I'm a youngster, if I'm in first year or second year of college and I'm listening to it, my question would be, wait, what did he actually do? And what do I do? I mean, if you're saying practice, as a college student, I'll be like, I am practicing every day. Or if I'm Satya, I'm like, of course, I'm doing my RD Sharma every day. So what do you mean by practice? So I think a little context setting for them in terms of what Sai was talking, what Hariharan was talking is, I think these are simple things, right? Understand it at a holistic level, right? Break down problems, analyze those problems, do that reflection on a daily basis. These little processes, what they do is they develop that passion and conviction you have around what you're doing. Again, we see a lot of motivational speakers speak about it, but the big question is, do you do it? That's what Mr. Hariharan was saying. Do you do it? All right? Do you really try to find that passion and conviction in what you're doing? Point number 2, do you break down problems, which is what Sai was telling, that wherever you're stuck, he was breaking it into little pieces and was able to figure out from there. And when you break it down, are you able to go reach out to people, learn from those people and plow that back in, right? And point number 3 is, are you able to learn from people interactions, which I think Mr. Hariharan was touching upon, that when you talk to seniors, when you talk to industry professionals, when you talk to, say, interns whom you're trying to recruit for the company by interviewing them and so on, are you able to learn from those people interactions? I think a lot of little anecdotes did come in here. I'm not going to go into those details, but all I would just say is, you don't have to wait another 20 mediocre years to get into the leadership ranks, just because a lot of them have to wait 20 mediocre years to get into the ranks. At Deep Thought, we are hungry for growth. So we believe if there are some youngsters whom the industry cannot recognize, let's make the most of it. Let's promote those youngsters. Let's give them the license to go all out, grow, and pull the company along with them. So this is what I wanted to put forward to everybody who's joining in. But having said that, I'd want to take some concluding remarks from Mr. Hariharan and finally Sai.
Yeah, say, I think meaning, to me, like whatever I spoke, it's out of my experience, not that, meaning I have learned, basically it's not like what I have read and understood, okay, over the years. It's all just that, meaning I think I should thank my parents for that. Meaning they've inculcated certain things in me, which is like, meaning, meaning what you learn, you should practice, right? that is, it's not technology. It is not about work. It's not about profession. It's not about research. It is about a way of life. That's what I consider it as. It's a way of life. Meaning there is meaning. Otherwise, you become stagnant. You don't learn. You become stagnant. Okay, stagnancy makes you like, meaning it may be good for 2 days, 3 days, maybe for a small vacation, it's okay. But meaning beyond a point, you become stagnant. You start smelling, right? So you need to like, meaning the learning has to be a continuous process. Okay, and it's you need to become a habit. I sitting in this discussion, I am learning things. Okay, to me, like everything is a learning experience. There is something to take away from this. If you are able to reflect and be able to like internalize to yourself, right, to make certain changes in you, right, certain things, your perspective changes to your perspective, changes to your behavior, changes to how you interact with others, right? All of them will. That's what learning is about. Okay, and practice. This journaling. I repeat it, right? This journaling and reflection are great tools, right? Meaning, it might look like a little bit of a work probably today, but I will tell you, like, meaning you may not have to do for longer periods of time. 5-6 years you do it, practice it, then it becomes, you don't need those tools. You don't have to sit and write. Everything kind of automatically like gets imprinted in your mind. You don't have to like you will be able to easily recall. Right? So practice it like now. Okay, that goes long way in making you successful in whatever you are like aspiring to do. Whether you are an entrepreneur, you are a techie, or you are want to be an environmentalist, anything you want to do, right? That it will help.
Thank you, Mr. Hariharan. Over to you, Sai.
So yeah, to conclude, I'll want to just add a small note, like in not only for deep thought associates, but also for everyone as a whole, like in whatever company you may be working in, whatever university you may be studying, like there are some values and which the university or the company create. Like it's not an overnight idea, and they just don't bring like they start companies, right? There is a lot of research behind the companies to get started, and they also create some certain values which you have to follow while you're working. So yeah, while you're working in any company, for example, if you're working in deep thought, as Tarun always says, just go immerse yourself in the processes, and you'll automatically find your way to figure out what the values are, and you'll internalize the values. So yeah, this is what, like, enjoy your work whatever you're doing it, and yeah, you will find the results and success. It will be so inevitable. Yeah, that's a short.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Hariharan. Thank you, Sai.
Tarun, you're not audible.
Am I audible?
You are.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Hariharan. Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Aryan. Thank you, Satya. Thank you, Ananya. And I think Deep Thought is quite lucky to have a mentor like Mr. Hariharan, who I still recall the first interaction where he said he's passionate about working with youngsters and wants to do it with youngsters. So for those of you who are still puzzled, I still remember on WhatsApp people asking me, how did he do it? How can somebody with just 4 months experience be ready for this? And so on. I'll just say one thing, that earlier, I think to get things done, I would make like 10, 15 phone calls to all my friends in the industry and try to figure out how things are to be done. But ever since the journey with Mr. Hariharan and Sai started after he has been mentoring, a lot of things I would go and tell Sai, we need this, figure out how we can get this done. This is my use case. I would show him maybe a mock-up or something like that. He would talk to people internally and get the thing done. So I think as a CEO, the way it works for me is things get done, and an intern is able to figure out a lot of things and just get them done. I mean, is he delegating it to Shavan, or is he asking Tonsi? Is he asking Mr. Hariharan? Is he asking someone? Is he asking some industry experts? That doesn't matter to me. What I know is I have a single window clearance, go to him, tell him what I need, and I get it. That's exactly what I would want from an AVP as well, right? That tell him what I need and I get it done. And what is exciting with the journey with Mr. Hariharan, I would just say that we were under deadline pressure for the next fundraise. And I asked him, Mr. Hariharan, we are under deadline pressure, right? So would you want to pick freelancers or do you want to pick interns? I thought since he's on deadline pressure, he's going to say, let's pick freelancers. I was on the side of freelancers. I was like, tech is not a world I understand. If it's product, no matter how much deadline pressure I have, I'll not go with freelancers. I'll go with interns because that's the confidence I have in the way I execute with interns. So when I asked him, he said, no, Tarun, I want to do it with interns. Because that's going to be good for the future of the company. But then we went ahead with freelancers at that point because we wanted to lay a foundation. But now again, we started picking up a lot of interns. And he was instrumental in picking up a 12th grader to do an internship with us, Shubham, who recently, joined us. Mr. Hariharan just says, Shubham is a nerd. He just loves to code. I want to have him in the company just because this guy loves to code, and I think he can contribute to the company and it will be a nice influence into the company. So I was not very convinced initially, but I think it was Mr. Hariharan's push that we picked up Shubham into the team. And I think it's nice to have somebody like him who believes in the power of youngsters. And I hope this inspires a lot more companies also to pick up youngsters. You save a little bit of money, you get to more energetic people into the team. All you have to do is create a good environment in which youngsters can learn, feel safe, experiment a bit more, get a little bit more time and learn. So on behalf of all the interns of Deep Thought, on behalf of all the stakeholders of Deep Thought, I'd like to thank Mr. Hariharan for believing in youngsters and giving us a success story in the form of Sai, who would, I think, motivate a lot more people to believe that leadership journey is something which is within the sight of youngsters. Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Mr. Hariharan.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You all have a good evening.